When I think of rest, I think of Jesus by the shore on the Sea of Galilee. He was preaching to a huge crowd, and the crowd kept coming in, until he was forced to get into a boat and move out a little bit into the lake, and then preach from there, where he sat. And as Mark describes it in his gospel, people stood the entire day to listen to his stories of wonder and hope and healing. At the end of the day, he was exhausted. He needed rest. The disciples rowed him across the lake, but before they reached the other shore, a huge storm came up and threatened to swamp the boat. Jesus was still asleep, and the disciples in fear cried out, "Lord, save us!" Jesus awoke then, and only then. He stood up and he rebuked the wind and the seas, saying, "Peace, be still." At once, all was calm. And the disciples said, "Who is this man that even the wind and the seas obey him?" I would have said the same thing, wouldn't you? Last week, I had a stormy week. There was a lot of howling winds, and the waves threatened to swamp me. But at the end of that week, I heard Jesus' voice. It came in the form of Sabbath. And Jesus said, "Peace, be still." Enjoy the journey.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 7 of our 8 days to better health. Now, you know, if you've already been joining me from night to night, that we're not going to magically have a better health way or routine or, lifestyle just from tuning in 8 days to these little talks. We are going to be able to make change bit by bit, day by day. And so I'm hoping that for those of you who've been tuning in and those who may watch the replays later, I'm hoping that you will commit not just to watching these now, but to actually taking the steps toward better health. These are steps that are just absolutely invaluable. And I know that you will be blessed, as will everyone that is around you, because that's one of the ripple effects of good health. So, welcome to these 8 days. We are on day 7. Our focus for today is rest. And if you will reflect with me on the word creation, this is where we get each of the health principles that we're focusing on all 8 days. C is for choice, R is for rest, that's today's. E is for environment, A is activity, T is trust in God, I is interpersonal relationships, and we talked about that last night. O is outlook, and N is nutrition. And by looking at all of these 8 days, we have this more holistic picture of health. Instead of just picking at a few, the typical exercise, nutrition, now we're looking at this holistic picture, and we're recognizing that each of these letters, each of these principles connects to the rest. So I know you're going to be blessed, and once again, by our time together, I have a special guest that is joining me, and I am thrilled for that. And I will introduce her in just a moment. I wanted to reflect a little bit on yesterday's session on interpersonal relationships. And I want to share this once again, just because you may not have had time to jot it down, or you may have jotted it down somewhere and now you can't remember where the napkin is. You know how it goes. So I want to share this with you. This is, oops, sorry about that. This is uh, a diagram, there's the word, of our relationships. And the task here, the exercise here that our study guide encourages us to take part in, is in that number 1, in that red circle. Make a list of all the people that you know are there to support you, and you actually tap into that support. Okay, that's your core support system. And then the second circle, the green circle, this is people that, um, if you need them, they're there. Okay, you may not be as close to them, but if you need them, they're there. And then that third circle is people you've never tapped into for support. But when you think about them, I think I could depend on them if I had to. Think about this, reflect on this. It's a great exercise to get us thinking about the relationships that we have, and not only relationships where people are investing in us, but also relationships where we are investing in others. Now, if you have not already done so, I encourage you to go to our website, athensgasda.org/8days. That's where you will find information about this seminar, and more specifically, it is a registration page, and you may wonder why tell us about a registration page on day 7. Reason is because I want to make sure to give you another opportunity, if you haven't already taken one, to purchase the book. And just by sharing a $10 donation, you'll be able to purchase this book, which is actually a $25 value. And so we're grateful that we can share it with you. And the hope is that in the future, this will be the study guide that we use to actually dig deeper. We're doing 8 days now, done tomorrow, but in the future, we're hoping to take each of these 8 principles and spend more time in each of them. And so you'll have the book ready to go for that. One last thing before I introduce our speaker tonight. As I do every day, I encourage you to let me know that you're here. The reason is this: if I know that you're here, then I can count your attendance. And if you're here for 8 days, whether you watch live or you watch later, if by Wednesday morning, when I go through all of these records, if I see that you tuned in all 8 days, then you will receive a special prize. So please let me know that you're here. You can just simply type in the comments. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, wherever you're watching from, just type in the comments, "I'm here," so that I know that indeed you are here. Now, let me introduce to you our speaker this evening, our guest, our interviewee, I should say, this evening. She is a friend of mine. I'll say that first, because it is great to be able to touch base with friends and tap into their expertise and just life experience. And so I'm grateful that Dr. Navishi Edwards is here with me tonight. Let me tell you a bit about her. She has a doctoral degree in counselor education from the University of Central Florida, a master's degree in community counseling from Andrews University, and bachelor's degree in psychology from Syracuse University. She's a licensed counselor in 2 states and operates a virtual private practice as a board certified telemental health counselor. She also trains master's and doctoral level students in counseling, and she does so online with Liberty University. She and her husband Linji live in a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, and they enjoy traveling, hiking, time at the beach, and ministering together. So without further ado, I want to welcome Navishi to this time. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, Michaela. Thank you. I'm so happy to be spending this time with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
You are welcome. Well, let's just dive in, shall we? When you think about rest, how do you define it?
Rest. Such a great question. Rest can be defined as taking a break, as setting time apart for doing, well, no, not doing, because rest is being more than it is doing. And I like to focus on that when I talk with folks, clients especially, that rest, sometimes we forget that we are human beings because we're so focused on being human doings. We do so many things all the time, constantly, continuously. And one of the wonderful definitions of rest is that it's the opportunity to stop doing and be fully engaged in being.
That is so real. We love to do. We find our value so often in what we do, which is why some of us can't stop
Hmm.
doing. The moment we stop doing, the moment we feel
Absolutely.
we've lost our value. And so
Yeah.
yes, we need to be reminded that we are human beings. We're here to be. Now, how would you describe your journey to deeply valuing rest? Because I'm guessing that this isn't something that you valued when you were 16. Maybe you did, maybe you loved your naps, I don't know. But how would you describe your journey to deeply valuing rest?
I love that question. Thank you so much. And, I think about that from time to time, especially when I'm teaching students in internship and practicum classes, because I communicate to them the importance of that. I'm training people who are going to become counselors, and I make it a point of duty to communicate to them the importance of taking a break as they are supporting others on their journey. Self care is one of the things when I think of rest. I think it's very much a part of the same company, self care and engaging in rest. And for me, you're absolutely correct. I didn't know about much of any of that while I was growing up. I grew up in a culture and community that really valued doing and taking care of other people and other things and neglecting self. That was the message that I got. You were a good Christian, you were a good person if you did. You did for this person and you did for that person. And the one person that you really didn't think about doing much for was yourself. And so that was a value that I ascribed to in my younger days. And the turning point for me took place many years ago when a friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer. And we, as the young people, it was a young people group at our church, and we all rallied around him. This is a really traumatic experience for all of us. And so we rallied. We wanted to do everything we could to support him, which included praying and fasting and cooking and paying his bills. He had to go away for treatment. And so we house sat and took care of whatever those needs were. There was a lot of doing as a part of the support team as he navigated his battle with cancer. And the unfortunate reality is, at the end of that journey, he died. And I was devastated. I was devastated for a number of reasons. And I realized while I was in the midst of grief and loss and questioning God why our friend was taken from us, that I was so busy doing so many things that I neglected some other things that were also important, including me and time with me, including resting. And that was a huge turning point for me because I was so focused on doing what I had learned was the norm that I didn't realize the need to do anything different. And at the moment where I had an epiphany, I said, wait a second, what happened to Navishi during that time? I was so focused on our friend and doing for our friend that I neglected
Yeah.
me in that experience. And I had a real opportunity to say, okay, what do I need to do differently moving forward? Because this wasn't necessarily what I needed to do. A lot of it was what I needed to do, but the self neglect was not.
Mhm. Mhm. So then how did you make that change, or what were some things that maybe you started putting into place?
I love that question. And really, it was having that conversation with God and with self, and then with some of my friends. Like, I'm realizing that I love taking care of and doing for and doing and supporting lots of other folks. And I realized that, oh, wow, I can do all these wonderful things that I do for others for me also. And so I started realizing, okay, it's wonderful to be giving and loving and caring and sharing with wonderful people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also important to do that with me. And so when I realized that and started making that shift, that's when rest became a true experience that was internalized and implemented in my everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so funny I mean, funny, not funny, to think of the fact that we treat others. I mean, it's great that we treat others well, but we don't give ourselves the
Absolutely.
same, you know? And I mean, it speaks to so much, our culture, habits, all sorts of things. And so to be able to make that change, um, I'm guessing wasn't necessarily an easy, next thing. There was probably some times of, you know, reworking the the care package. But yeah, it's great to hear you talk about that reality that there just sometimes we don't think about ourselves. And this is critical to resting. This is critical to rest.
Absolutely.
Um, Unlike a baby that we put to bed, no one is putting us to bed. No one is slowing us down. We're in charge of that. And we've got to be able to shift our
Mhm.
minds in order to do that. Well, here's
Mhm.
another question for you. One of the things that the study guide talks about is the fact that, there's daily rest, there's weekly rest, and there's annual rest. There are different types of rest that we can
Yeah.
and should engage in. What does rest look like in your life, from daily to weekly to whatever it may be?
I love that question. Thank you. Because had you asked me this many years ago, say before my friend with cancer, I wouldn't know what to tell you. But I
Mm,
have this so clear and present in my life today. I can answer that very clearly. And so some of those things include I tell my students that don't call me on a Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. because if you do, you won't get me. If you send me an email, I will not be responding because I shut it down. I have a very busy week. And so Fridays at 3 p.m., that's my bath time. So anyone that knows me
nice.
knows that I take a bath on Friday afternoons. And my students look at me kind of strange when I say that. And I say, I shower other days of the week. I shower all the time. But a special Nivishi bath time at the end of the week. And I do not allow appointments to infringe upon that special time for just relaxation, for rest from the hustle and bustle, even resting from showering because I'm taking a bath. And really to slow down. That's what a bath does for me. A shower, I can hop in and hop out and go on about doing what needs to be done and taking care of the bits and pieces of the week. When I am getting ready to take a bath, there's a certain process that it entails. I have to get the water to the right temperature and let it run. And so it slows me down.
Hmm.
And I put my salts and I add whatever oils. And that slows me down. And I light my candles. Even though it's, light out at 3 p.m. now, I do the things that will slow me down and will help me to really it's almost a shifting of the mindset to, okay, it's no
Hmm.
longer answering the emails, sending the text, making the calls, putting out this fire here or there. It's
Hmm.
let's let's slow down intentionally to be ready to rest.
Hmm.
And I have been doing that religiously for quite some years now, and it is phenomenal. That's vital. So that's one of the things I do. I also give myself a pajama day once a semester, and it
Nice.
it sounds just like it said. I get up in the PJs and I keep them on all day, and I just relax all day long and
Nice.
enjoy an opportunity just to relax, just to do whatever. It could be reading or staying in bed. I often don't stay in bed, but I'm not getting out of my PJs. That is my time
And
to
is
just
this
chill.
something you schedule far out in advance? How do you do that?
Absolutely. I schedule my pajama day I schedule, and that's a wonderful question because I think a lot of times it's easy for us to schedule everyone and everything else on our calendar.
Mhm.
What about ourselves? And so
Mhm.
I put me on my calendar and I set reminders. And so bath time pops up. It's set in my reminder. Pajama day pops up. I also go to the spa. There's a spa here in Georgia. It's a 24-hour spa, and I go once a quarter. I'm there for 24 hours or however long I choose, and that's really me time. It's no
Mhm.
phone, no anything else. It's just the opportunity to relax and unwind. Hiking too offers that opportunity. Really, just being out in nature gives me an opportunity to rest because I'm not driving to here or there or taking care of this or that. It's simply me and nature and moving my body and relaxing and listening really to whatever it is that God wants to communicate to me during that time that I'm out enjoying creation,
Mhm.
creation, pun intended. So it's really just the opportunity to really take a break from all the other things that provides
Mhm.
rest for me.
Mhm. Now, when you talked about shutting everything down at 3 o'clock on a Friday, not answering phone, emails, there's something in me, and I'm gonna guess in others listening, that's just like, how do you do that? How in the world, like I could see maybe myself doing that, one week I would be really good, I could handle it.
Mhm.
But then, I mean, you're shutting down on Friday. When do you reboot? What time are you back on to phone and email? Is this a whole weekend away? What does that look like for you?
That's a good question. So it depends, really. I know my bath time is the shutdown. So
Okay.
that period of time is carved out. And usually for the rest of the evening I'm not very available. Yeah. But it depends. It could be just that however long I spend in the tub or
Mhm.
it can kind of, find its way into the rest of the evening. Sabbath
Mhm.
rest. Nice
Mhm.
blend into the reality.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hmm.
What do you think, what are some of the things that cause some of us to say, like, I can't possibly do that, Like I
Right,
should, like I'm a responsible human being, I have a job, I should check my email
right.
until at least 5 o'clock, or whatever the case may be. What do
Hmm.
you think are some of the things that get in the way of our ability to shut down like that and treat ourselves well?
Yeah, I love the fact that you say that causes us because I think it's really a responsibility that we put on ourselves and an expectation too.
Mhm.
And there's a statement that says people will treat you the way you teach them to
Mm.
treat you. And
Mhm.
so if the expectation from others is that I will answer my emails until 5 p.m., that they will, or I will respond maybe, because they can send them. But if they expect a response from me because I have communicated to them that I will in my actions, or if they expect a response to a text, or they expect me to be available for a call because that's what my behavior has communicated, then they will continue in that vein.
Mhm.
However, if they send a text and I do not respond until the following day, if they leave a message and I do not respond until the following day, if they send an email and I do not respond until the following day, then there's a message too that is being communicated.
Right.
And so we train ourselves and we
Mhm.
train others about what our norms and our realities will be.
Mhm.
And I think that's the piece. So I think at first the responsibility is ours to communicate what our boundaries are that
Mhm.
will enable us to get the rest that we so rightly deserve.
Mhm. 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 Deserve. That's a big word for some of us, right? Like,
I know.
I deserve? Who am I to deserve? How have I earned this?
You know,
Now,
what's interesting too, though, I love the fact that you said that because Christ, he gave us that wonderful example when he walked the earth.
yeah.
And if he himself would take time to rest, if
Hmm.
he would take time apart, who are we not to follow in his wonderful example?
Yeah.
Our society,
Yeah.
I believe, has really trained us to think that it's not okay or that
Hmm.
we don't deserve it. But if our brother, if our Savior, if our Redeemer Lord himself did it when he was here and set such a great example for us, why should we not follow suit?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because we're not Jesus and we're not so wonderful. We're willing to follow in other ways, right? The ways that make us feel, I don't know, worthy, whatever whatever those may be. We're such a mess. We're such a mess. Um, when when you're talking about, the responsibility being on me to live a certain way, to show a certain way, I think of boundaries and
Absolutely.
the ability to set these healthy boundaries and the
Mm-hmm.
relationship between that and rest. I mean, it's yesterday when we were talking about interpersonal relationships, that the boundary topic came up for a bit because we were talking about the fact that sometimes there are people that you maintain connection with, but they're no longer the friends where there's mutual support going on and that sort of thing, and
Right.
and part of that may necessitate certain boundaries, just because of
Mm-hmm.
the nature of the relationship. And it's easy for us to compartmentalize everything, including boundaries.
Right.
Like, I'm only going to really think about
Mm-hmm.
boundaries if I'm thinking about interpersonal relationships. But the
Mm-hmm.
interpersonal relationships impact everything else. So does
Right.
the boundary. So yeah, it just came to mind as a reminder of how interconnected all these pieces of our lives really are.
Absolutely.
Um, Another question for you. Hmm.
So let me add to what you just shared, Michaela,
Sure.
because in conjunction with boundaries being a part of the need in interpersonal relationships we might have, it we need to have boundaries with ourselves
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
order to rest.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I need to say it is okay to not answer this text or respond to it or make this call. It is okay to shut it down at this time and rest.
Mhm.
So I am responsible for having healthy boundaries with me
Mhm.
so I can take care of me and I can
Mhm.
rest and have healthy boundaries with others
Mhm.
also.
Mhm. Mhm. It's it's funny because I'm like, in order to sort this out, we have to rest. Like, we have to pause, right? We have to pause long
Yeah,
enough to think about these things.
absolutely.
We
And
can't
I
we can't
think
process this.
that there are times where I don't want to look at this stuff. So let me keep being busy.
Yes.
Because if I look
Yes.
at this stuff, ooh, what will I see?
Yeah.
Ooh, what will I learn? Ooh, I don't want to look. Let me continue to be busy
Yeah.
instead of taking a break, slowing it down, and resting to gain
Mhm.
the blessings that rest has to offer.
Mhm. Mhm. Hmm. Some of us will learn the hard way. But we don't need to. And my encouragement to any of you tuning in right now is learn learn from this. If you haven't already learned, learn from this conversation right now, and don't just let it be head knowledge. Don't just let it be, notes in a notebook. But really determine to make time for this process. There's a quote in the book that I was planning to share a little later, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to share it right now, because
Mm-hmm.
it fits in perfectly with this, and I think is so necessary for a lot of us. The time to
Mm.
relax is when you don't have time for it.
Amen.
And Sidney J. Harris was
Amen.
an American journalist. He worked for Chicago Sun-Times and um, other publishers, and I can only imagine the life of a journalist is not one where rest is automatically, part and parcel of this package. It's go, go, go.
Right.
It's be there, it's do this, it's write that, it's talk to so and so. You want to get the story, you want to get it right. Like, how do you do that and
Mhm.
rest? And so for someone in his shoes to be able to have said this is a reminder to us that,
Mhm.
hey, perhaps those who we look at as successful, as
Mhm.
productive, or whatever good words we put on them, are that way in part because they've learned to rest. They're not just
Yeah.
moving, 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 moving. So truly, let's start to learn from this conversation tonight. Let's talk to me now about how you see rest relating to one of the other principles that we're talking about today.
Wonderful. So, what is the C in creation, Michaela?
Choice.
I love how you said that. Choice. And I think rest, as we have been conversing about thus far, is all about choice. It's
Mhm.
really about making the choice to make that your reality.
Mhm.
Choosing to remember that we are human beings, not human doings,
Mhm.
and to engage more in being. I choose to not respond to this text or to post in this forum, or I choose to say no to that person instead of saying no to me when I
Mhm.
say yes to everyone else and everything else.
Mhm.
So I can choose to rest. And it's important that we remember that each time we choose to do something or something for someone, that it's often the case that we're saying no to ourselves when we're saying yes to other
Mhm.
people or other things. And so I
Mhm.
encourage that specific thing to choose rest intentionally
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
often.
Have you ever maybe slipped up from your rest choices, and maybe somebody else has been like, you know this isn't you. What's going on?
So I love that question because was it this semester? This semester I had a colleague call me. And usually, so because I'm really intentional about my bath time at 3 o'clock on Fridays, I start kind of winding down at 2:30 because I know, if I start a new project or if I start responding to something at 2:30, it will probably move me beyond my time. And I actually like to
Mm,
be in the tub at 3, so I'm not running the
okay,
water at 3. I'm in the
gotcha.
tub at 3. I'm
Okay, okay.
really important to me. So I had a colleague call at 2:30. We had been in conversation, back and forth with emails. It's just like, oh, when is the latest I can call? Is it okay to call at this time? And I said, I am available until 2:30. She called at 2:30. And I looked at the phone and I said, oh, do I answer? I knew she was in a bind. Like, do I answer or do I stick to my guns? I answered. And she said, I know you said you were available only until 2:30, but she was struggling. She was, long story. Anyhow, so I listened. We talked. She says, I won't keep you long. What do you think happened? Which is what happens, right? This is what
Yeah,
happens in our lives, in our world.
yeah.
I ask my students to hold me accountable to my self care needs because I also hold them accountable. And so we
Mhm.
report back the following week how we're doing and the things that we intended to do. Have we been successful? If we haven't, what do we want to do and shift? And so as I watched the time go by in the conversation with my colleague and the time went to 250 and 255. And I was just like, I knew it. I knew it. And I got in the tub at 315. Still enjoyed my time. I was grateful that I still took my time, but I shook my head from side to side. And I went to my class, my students, the following week, and I said, I need to tell on myself. Got it. Have a confession.
Yes.
Yep. And so one of my students said, oh, it's okay, Dr. Navishi. We'll give you some grace.
Nice.
But yeah, so it does happen. You know, we all fall short from time to time. And I do that. I extend myself grace. But I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because I haven't gotten it right or done it perfectly. I keep moving forward and continue to do what I know I need to do to take care of myself and get the rest that my body needs.
Yeah.
And it's not just our body, too. I want to emphasize when we rest, it's good for our body, our minds, our holistic beings. It's a wonderful way. If we're so busy with all these things, sometimes we don't get to hear all the wonderful things that God's sending to us because everything is so clogged. And so it's really important. Rest impacts not just our physical being, but our psychological being, our emotional selves. Impacts us socially. You know, if you're not rested well, other people around you can really be impacted by that. I know I've heard that lack of sleep is related to, if you're driving, it can have the same effect of alcohol use. The impairment is that significant. So that's how important rest is. Imagine how other parts of your life is impacted.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a comment, I don't want to forget about it, from my friend JD. He said, this is so needed, especially for Adventists, which is so funny, not funny, because rest is one of our core tenets, right? The Sabbath is one of our core tenets.
Right.
And yet I feel like in more recent years, I've heard more emphasis placed on like how to actually Sabbath, like someone I know a few years ago started tweeting on Sabbath. She would report something that she's doing, and the hashtag would be Sabbathing, and it was just this reminder, just like, we can pull back, we can do this, and it doesn't just mean not doing things, right? Sabbath rest isn't just about not watching TV or not shopping or, not working. Sabbath rest is, but many of us have had to figure out what that is. Like, really, what is it? A lot of us probably learn to just sort of be still or try to be still instead of actually learning how to really be and enjoy the day. So we have a lot to learn, and there are many people right now, other Christians, other believers, who are celebrating Sabbath observance. They may not be doing it on Sabbath as we understand it, from Friday night, from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, but they are really embracing. Someone that I follow on Instagram, this is her thing, and for her it's Saturday afternoon to Sunday afternoon. She has a very focused time of Sabbath, and so we who are Sabbatarians have a lot to learn, to relearn, to reframe when it comes to this rest. So thank you, JD, for sharing that. And he also said, I say yes to me today. Amen. We've got to learn that.
Good for you.
Learn that.
Awesome.
Let's see. What's another question that I have for you here? Are there things that you've treasured that you've had to give up in order to rest?
That's a great question. Yes. And so at the beginning, I mentioned that I grew up in a culture where doing was the norm, where we were prized if we I remember my grandma, she would say, if someone needs something and you have only one shirt on your back, it's your responsibility to take that shirt off and give it to the person in need. That's the kind of culture in which I grew up. And you talk about, how we as Adventists, we can learn a number of things. And absolutely, because I think of just how we spend Sabbath. Sometimes that's the busiest day
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
week. And
Mhm.
so giving that up has been a shift for me, learning to be uncomfortable with being versus
Mm.
doing.
Mhm.
That has been a shift. And so giving that up, although it was uncomfortable at the onset, and I really felt like a fish out of water. Like, how do I
Mhm.
stop doing for others and putting
Mhm.
others first all the time? How do I learn to say yes to Navishi more? That that was a very, very uncomfortable and difficult task at the onset. And so that was something I had to give up.
Mhm.
However, having done that and learning these new ways of being and implementing these practices, now it doesn't feel like I have given anything up. I have gained so much more,
Yeah.
so much more. And I'm so absolutely grateful for these new ways of being.
Mhm. Mhm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And some of us maybe have to keep that in mind. There'll be something gained. There will be something gained. There will be.
It's coming. It's
It's
coming.
coming. Is there anything else about rest that you'd like to share with us this evening?
Anything else about rest? I want to encourage folks to embrace it and even challenge yourself. There's so many challenges that are a part of our society these days. This challenge,
Mhm.
that challenge. Challenge yourself to rest. There are so many benefits that are a part of that experience. Taste and see how good it is. You'll be glad you did.
Mhm. Mhm. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Navishi. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing from your own experience. And I do believe that anyone listening has already been blessed. And as we continue to chew on what we've heard, folks, don't forget you can always come back and rewatch this, whether on Facebook or on YouTube. You can watch this again and glean things that maybe you missed the first time around. And when it comes to a challenge, I might just start one. We'll see. But yeah, let's embrace the rest. Let's embrace the rest. Navishi, I just want to pray for us before you head off here. Dear God, thank you so much for rest. Thank you for teaching us how to. Thank you for making it part of your creation week. Thank you for reminding us in so many ways that we're stronger, we're healthier when we do stop, when we pause, when we take time away. And thank you for Navishi and for her willingness to share from her lived experience. And God, I pray that you will continue to grant her wonderful opportunities of rest, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. I know all around her will be blessed. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, Michaela. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you later.
All right, blessings.
I know that that has been a blessing to you. I see a heart posted. Yes, it. This is good. This is good information. This is not just good. That doesn't even feel enough. This is invaluable. Many of us really need to sit with rest. We really need to sit with this health principle and reframe our understanding of rest. It may mean that we need to focus on our sleep habits, which is something that the study guide talks about too. It, for most of us, I would guess, it could be our sleep habits, but it's also our ability to look at ourselves and say, I deserve it. I'm a child of God. And that all by itself makes me worthy of rest. And if Jesus did it, I need to do it too. If the Savior of the universe needed to rest, and I'm not even like the half Savior of the universe, then clearly I need it too. So if you are willing to commit to just thinking about and praying about rest in the next 24 hours, I want you to comment, just say I'm committing to it. I'm committing. Or maybe committing is a tough word to spell at 7:45 p.m. Just say I'm in. I'm in. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Tomorrow is our last day, day 8, and we'll be talking about food. We'll be talking about nutrition. And I am happy to walk that road with you when we get there tomorrow. Until then, please share this with someone you know will be blessed by it. And oh, Joanna, you're so welcome. She said, "Thanks, ladies, for all the tips. Really needed." We all need this reminder. And would you please, JD said, I'm in, and somebody else, I can't see your face, or your name, it just says Facebook user. So you'll need to type in there who you are. The last person there that said I'm in, who are you? But I would love for us to not just commit to thinking about it, but also commit to finding somebody else to talk about this with. Because that, for some of us, is going to be a necessary next step to actually implementing some real change. We need that accountability. So, so ask somebody that you trust, that you know will be honest with you to join you in this journey. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourself.